We're live. Okay. Welcome to quite a special little video. Myself and Kieran here, we're going to have a chat on the recent events that have happened at auction with myself and with himself lately. And we're going to share some auction tips and things, ways to avoid getting burned, ways to avoid disasters, things like that. Now, a little introduction first. We'll introduce Kieran first from Taliesin Antiques. But do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Bella?
Yeah, so I'm Kieran Hughes-Jones, full-time antique dealer, just like Walter. My website is taliesinantiques.com. We're actually based in the same part of the world, so we're usually at the same market and boot sales and all that type of stuff. And I also have my own YouTube channel, which has been running for about a year now, where I also cover videos on antiques and the trade and all that type of stuff. So head over there if you haven't already, please.
Okay, that's great. And I've obviously anyone who knows me, I'm Walter O'Neill, and I'm the founder of antiquesarena.com. Link to Kieran's channel is in the description, and his website's there on the screen, so you can visit the website. Now, as I've already said, today we're going to have a discussion about the recent events that have happened in auction with myself. We're going to discuss something that Kieran's actually had, but his total mess up was a benefit for him. We're going to talk about a few other problems, and then we're going to go into some auction tips and secrets. Now, this is going to be a members only video, so if you're watching it live on the public channel, then please feel free to join in. But once the video is finished, it's going to be put over to the membership side, because it's going to be in the how-to and the educational side on the members channel. So should we get started, do you think? Yeah?
Let's get into it.
Right. Let me give you a bit of a breakdown and background of what's happened. I sold, first of all, in Malvern Antique Fair. And I did okay. I done about £1,500 for the day selling, and I had a lot of big stuff. I filled a massive long wheelbase transit van to go to Malvern, and I noted certain things at Malvern, such as dealers weren't there, or the general traditional dealers weren't there. I didn't see people there with trolleys full up of furniture and things like that. I saw loads of eBay dealers and things like that, but I didn't see the traditional antique dealer. Certainly not around where I was in Malvern. It doesn't mean they weren't there, but they certainly weren't in the aisles I was in. And I was in what's called casual aisles. So you got the people who pre-book and they go in all the hangers and things like that. And then you have the casuals, which people just pay on the day, turn up and sell. And I noted loads of different things, from how many cars were there, how many vans were there, the type of things that sold. We had a good in-depth look at all the stuff that went on in Malvern, and I gave quite a few inside thoughts. And one of these thoughts was, were the traditional antiques out of fashion? Was the reason I didn't sell those antiques in the antique fair the simple reason nobody wants them anymore? And I had a long chat with Kieran about it, and I decided I was going to put them into an auction house. And I was going to put them into an auction house, into an antique sale with no reserve. And I think you'll agree, Kieran, we both determined that that would be a fair test of whether the items were any good, or whether the people were just not going to Malvern, they were just going straight to the auctions and things to buy. Because we wanted to know, were they going to the auction houses to buy the items, or were they actually going to the antique fairs, or was the stuff just no good anymore? Yeah. And that was the whole aim at putting the stuff in the auction. Now, you actually had a different experience when you went to Malvern, because you went to Malvern in the peak of the summertime, didn't you?
Yeah, I went right at the start of the season this year. So I remember it being quite warm. And I think it was around the time when, the boot sales and stuff were kind of reopening, and the fairs, of course. So I think I went as a buyer for a start. I didn't go as a seller. So there's one thing. And I think the buying experience, probably you wouldn't get the same impression as you picked up, because I'm not one of those dealers either. I wasn't looking for furniture stuff or anything. But to me, I did see people with trolleys. I went in as soon as it started, and it seemed to be a good, I was in quite a long queue to get in. A lot of the things you said, weren't there when you went up more recently. Did seem to be there at the beginning of the year from my perspective as a buyer, but I don't really know, because I didn't sell there. So I guess it's hard to be sure. But what was interesting was, I think what I said to you was, a lot of other dealers I speak to from when I used to be in the antique centre and all that, about a few weeks before you went up to Melbourne, was saying the same thing about Melbourne. They were saying it's turned into a big boot sale. And I wasn't, to be honest, I was a bit like, I didn't think to ring true. And then you went up there and then it happened to you. So it just seems to be, I don't think you're the only person who got that impression, is what I'm getting at there.
Well, we had a big talk about that, whether Malvern was turned into a big car boot sale or whether it was still a good, viable antique flea market. And a couple of things I picked up on was, I walked around at the end of the day and I bought 10 Georgian drinking glasses, early and mid-19th century drinking glasses for £5 each. And I think I listed them at around £400 for the 10, give or take, something like that. They would never have been there on a normal day. And another thing that pointed that out was the Doctor Who photograph. I had a photograph of Matt Smith from Doctor Who. He's not everybody's favourite, but he was my favourite. And it was my autographed photograph of Matt Smith. I knew it was a genuine autograph as well because it was bought for me and it had a certificate on the back. Now, I only had a tenner on that. And did I tell you how much I was offered for that?
A couple of quid or something on that.
£2. I was offered £2 for it. Now, you don't go to an antique fair or giant flea market like Malvern and expect to buy stuff for £1 and £2. Oh, I wouldn't anyway. That's car boot sale mentality. So anyway, that was the background story. So what I done, I brought the stuff home and I thought, okay, I'm going to put it all into the auction. And the auction I selected was Nigel Ward's up in Hereford because I dealt with them multiple times. They've been going for decades. And to be honest with you, I think I've sold with them multiple times up to 2 decades ago. And they always achieve amazing prices in their antique sale. Plain and simple. They always achieve amazing prices in the antique sale. And what happened, I phoned them up on the last day of entry, which was the Friday, and I said, have you got any room left in your antique sale? I said, I got about 13, 14 lots. And she asked what they were. And she said, yeah, we got room. Can you bring them in today? I said, no, I can bring them in the morning. I said, I can't bring them in today. She said, that's no good. We're going to staff it on the weekends. So bring them in on Monday morning. So I was there 9 o'clock Monday morning. I was showing the lady on the reception my item. She said, that's not good enough. The antique sale he won't sell. That's not good enough. The antique sale he won't sell. So I took 2 items back. The items I took back was the arts and crafts carved mahogany bed and a huge 3-foot square, give or take, painting of African tribal people. So she rejected those. She took the rest. We filled it all in, all the entry forms and so forth. And then the auction turned out, they put every single one of my lots into a general sale. They sold it next to, and when I say next to, I don't mean literally one lot into the next. What I mean is all alongside. This is the stuff that was in the sale along with my antiques. Buckets of sun cream. Plastic dog beds. They're the 2 that just stand out because I just can't believe them. But it was like that all the way through the sale. Now, me and you were talking throughout the sale. There was some major errors that had happened. Like they said sale room was playing up, so my images on my items hadn't gone up. There was titles or descriptions from the entry form had been altered into the catalogue, so they weren't the same entry form descriptions. For example, I gave over 2 petrol pump covers from a petrol station. And it was clear in the description of the entry form what they were. When it came to the auction catalogue, they were just put down as 2 fiberglass covers, and the auctioneer didn't even know what they were. He was there, what are they? And then he was guessing, are they from a petrol station? Are they from the pump covers? Things like that. But if they hadn't altered the title description, they'd have gone through as what they were, and maybe they'd have been picked up on keyword searches because people on online auctions, you were telling me, when they search keywords. I don't know how it works.
Easy Live Sales Room, you'll have a alert you can set up. So if you put into the alert, I don't know, Persian rug, then and you can, I think you can even say Persian rug in this area. Then every time a Persian rug is catalogued in that area, you'll get an email from them saying new one going into auction, and that's a big thing for auctions. That's like anyone who uses them regularly would probably have spotted this. And I'm sure most auction houses know this. For an auction house not to know this or not to use it into their favour is mind-blowing to me. Why wouldn't you do that? But that's what happened there.
So they changed titles to the point the auctioneer didn't even know what they were. and they put handmade Kurdish rugs and Persian rugs in with rugs from B&Q and Hypervalue. So the entire sale for me was a total flop, total waste of time. There were some ups. They achieved £210 for a set of 5 rusty stools, as the auctioneer called them, when I spoke to him on the phone. But then we got to start asking ourselves, if they achieve £210 plus commission, that's £250 for 5 industrial stools, could they have done any better in the antique sale? Because there must have been something about them I didn't know about. But they did achieve me a good price on them. But I think that was the only good price they achieved on the day. Persian rugs were sold for less than a tenner. Skeletons, full skeletons were sold for less than a tenner. It was a disaster, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just like look, you. A lot of people, I think, watched your video and got the wrong end of the stick from what I read in the comments. They thought that your complaint was about the values they achieved. It's not that, is it? It's the point is that they weren't given a chance. They weren't put into an auction as they should have been catalogued. So now you don't know what they should have got. It just seems like they were disregarded and disrespected. And it's clear, like, you know, you could tell that most of the items in that sale that you were in were like house clearance items that the auction house themselves had done. And they just wanted to get rid of them. So they're happy to take £1. But to take consigned items, like, they don't know you. Like, I presume they didn't know, you know, that you're a dealer in stock or anything. But for all they know, these are like family heirlooms. They're things that like mean quite a lot to you. And that will happen in auctions, is things will be given to them which has a degree of sentimental value. You'd think that there would just be a degree of respect for the items. But no, it just felt like the pictures were, this is my opinion, looking through the bit, I was surprised how poor the pictures were. The descriptions, can you call them descriptions? It didn't describe it.
It wasn't a description. They copy-pasted the title into the description. The things like my rocking horse didn't even have measurements on in the description.
Yeah. These are basics. And I just thought, you know, you're paying for a service at the end of the day. And I was quite surprised in the comments, kind of the low standards some people did have. Like, most comments, I should say, you know, were reasonable, even if they didn't agree with you. But there's a couple that defending the auction. I was just thinking, why are you defending an auction house? You're paying for a service. Can't they? Surely you expect a degree of standards from them. And the bare minimum would be a half decent picture, a decent title and description, and measurements.
And in the right sale.
And in the agreed sale. So it was shocking. I was quite. I think I said it was an eye opener. I think about perhaps not even just our auction, because I don't think they're alone in how they operate.
No, we've learned that from the comments. Now, if anybody wants to read the full article or watch the video, right, I've got a full article on my website, antiquesarena.com, right, and it goes in depth. But every single thing I show, I back up with evidence. Emails, screenshots, the video of the sale room, everything. It's all backed up. Right, so we're not going to make accusations we can't back up. And I'm not making accusations anyway. I just feel that, as you've pointed out, a lot of the things in their sale are house clearance items. And the auctioneer, one of his lots, said that, is this the items we had from the house clearance? I think it was in Ross, which instantly said to me that this was all the house clearance stuff they'd pulled in. And in my opinion, they're selling it in auction, A, to make a little bit of money off it, and B, so they haven't got to pay their fees to dump it in the dumps. So it's a win-win. They're not paying to dispose of the items. In fact, they're being paid to take them away. So for every item to sell for £1 even, for them in the auction, probably is a 1,000 lot auction. That would pull them £1,000 and probably save them £1,000 in dump fees. Because I've got a trade license for carrying waste. We know how expensive it is to dump waste. So that's why they sell it all in that auction. Now, as you've said, to consign something off a member of the public and look at it and go, that belongs in my tat auction, and I think you've actually gone out afterwards and found the 2 thumbnails for the 2 different auctions, which we never saw before, which was they had their antique and collectible sale on the Saturday listed as antiques, and the sale on the Friday was listed as the bric-a-brac sale. Yet my entry form stated quite clearly on the top of the entry form, antiques and collectibles. Now, they argued with that, but they said because it also adds the word effects. But the implication was it was going in an antique and collectible sale. Now, a lot of people have moaned, saying, well, I've been in the business long enough, and I've been in it 30 years. So I agree. I've been in the business long enough. I should have known to put a reserve on the stuff. But that defeated the object. There was 2 reasons I didn't put a reserve on it. I wanted the larger items out of my storage so that I can make room for crates of smalls for my website. Because I don't want the big items no more. They take up, that rocking horse took up a third of a shipping container because you couldn't stack on top of it. And it was so big, it was 4 foot something wide and it was huge. So I wanted the larger items out of the way. So I was willing to put them in auction. And the reason I didn't use a reserve was I'd always planned on doing the video as an experiment. I wanted to know what the stuff sold for when it was put in front of antique dealers. And if antique dealers deemed that my Art Nouveau cast iron fireplace was only worth £6 or £7 that it sold for, then that's what it was worth. Fireplaces no longer sell. That was the idea of the auction. That's why I didn't put the reserve on. I understand I took the risk, and people seem to be focusing a lot on the money. And they're missing the point. It wasn't about the money for me. It was about the principle. They didn't even give my items a chance in the antique sale. And on top of that, then, I didn't even have an apology. When I spoke to Mr. Nigel Ward himself, he phoned me up after I put a formal complaint in. I wanted a reply in writing to include in my article, but he phoned me up personally, and he was very, very much of, they did me a favour by taking the stuff in late. They did me a favour by taking the stuff at all, and they did their best to sell it, and they even achieved a high price on the stools. What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, I think just sounds like, I haven't read the article there. He didn't understand the point either. If it was, the thing is, it's just like I go back to like just basic standards that you expect. So he's had a complaint in. If he legitimately feels that you've done everything perfectly, then that's one thing. But there's not even any degree of wanting to take on any feedback or consider the point of view. He went straight into a defensive mode. So you just got to think: would you accept that from any other business in your life? Or would you expect a degree of customer service or a degree of respecting you as a customer? And it just feels like that was lost on him.
Well, first of all, he asked me what I actually wanted from my complaint. And from the tone I got, my opinion was that he thought I was after money. And when I turned around to him and said, all I want off you is some accountability and maybe an apology, he still wouldn't do it. He still backpedaled, focusing on other things, like the achieving the £200 for the stools and things like that. Excuse me. And he seemed very shocked that I wasn't actually complaining for the money. I was complaining about the service. Now, we weren't interested in looking at how poorly the service had been provided to me. He wasn't interested. He was fully focused on the prices that had been achieved, thinking that all I was moaning about was the prices that they were selling handmade Persian rugs for £6. They shouldn't have been in the sale. He couldn't admit. I asked him, I said, do you actually believe those Persian rugs sounded like they belonged in the bric-a-brac sale? Do you believe that the hand-carved wooden horse belonged in the bric-a-brac sale? He wouldn't even answer it.
Fine. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you very much for your comment. They sold mine for £6 and it was beautiful. There are the Art Nouveau flowers all over it. If you want to see any images of any items we mentioned, right, they're in the article. Now, this isn't a slagging off video for Nigel Ward. I've already done that in my article, and I haven't slagged them off. I've just done it to outline the failures of what's gone on. What I would have liked to achieve by talking to Nigel and putting up the article and the complaint was, do you know what I really wanted? I'm very sorry. Mistakes were made. Maybe we won't charge you commission. You can have it all free, and we'll try and improve our services. And I'll talk to the staff and ask them to be more careful in the future. That has solved it.
Yeah,
I think that would have gone a lot further than being pompous and arrogant, and we done you a good deal.
I think, like, a couple of people, just I know it's not about what they achieve so much, but like whatever you think about what's in vogue and what's kind of gone out of fashion, there's no way in a million years that handmade Persian rugs are worth £6, even in today's market. You know, they have, yes, they've got down in value considerably, and I'm not saying they should have achieved hundreds and hundreds, but it tells you a lot about the auction market anyway, because you'd think people who had like antique shops or, you know, stalls or whatever would be picking them up and just saying, I don't know, £6, just bonkers to me. You'd think that someone would just take the risk and just stick, you know, at least 20 quid on it and still think of that as a good price and just stick in their shop and wait for someone to come along and need to them. But yeah, it just there's a couple. I think in a normal auction, and if it went into the Saturday auction, the antiques one, that's probably what would have happened. But that Friday one is, you know, it's going on during the morning when, you know, a lot of people are working and stuff like that. It's not designed, is it, to achieve great prices? As you say, it's designed to clear. So they should be honest, really. If they're going to put stuff in there, they should have said to you, look, the only slots we have available is this auction. Do you want to go in that one or do you want to leave it? And that would have been the fair thing to do.
Since we're talking about the Nigel Ward and the items, right, I've just pulled up my blog. I'm going to share the screen, right, so people can actually see the items and what they actually sold for. Now, this isn't a video about, as I said, running Nigel Ward down, but we're trying to set the scene of what's actually happened. This was an absolute disaster, right? So I'm going to share this. So we're going to come over here. Can you see that on the screen, or is it too small?
Yeah, I can see it.
Right. So that was the Art Nouveau fire. It was an original period Art Nouveau cast iron fire, beautifully cast, and they achieved £9 for that. They didn't put Art Nouveau in the title, nothing. It was just a decorative cast iron fire surround. And it wasn't even a fire surround. It's actually a fire insert. A fire surround is the bit of wood you get that goes around them. That is actually an Art Nouveau cast iron fire insert. Right? They achieved £9 for it. The Salters scales, they achieved £6 for. That was a full set of weighing scales, the tray, the hooks, everything, complete set. They had £6 for that. These are the stools. I'll give them credit. Believe it or not, right, I was asking a tenner a stool in Malvern, and they achieved 210 plus postage. Now, is that because I didn't know about what they were worth, or I didn't know about them? But they've been in Malvern. Nobody bought them in Malvern. You'll agree I've taken them to the boot sales a few times, Key. We've done a couple of boots with them and nobody bought them at the boots. And I put them on Marketplace and I couldn't sell them. And they achieved £210 for them. So it shows you the buying power that auction house has got.
Mm-hmm.
These were my petrol pump covers. One-offs, you're never going to find them again. Because they come from the petrol station half a mile down my road, and I took them off there myself when they refurbed the petrol station. These are two gas and oil-related petrol pump covers from Total Garage. And how did they describe them? Two fiberglass covers. And they achieved £1 for the both of them, mind. £1. Then we come over here, they had £22 for a handmade Turkish rug. That was the best result they had on the rugs. This Persian rug they sold for a 10, and that was huge. 79 inches by 118 inches. I presume that's inches. It was huge. This one, a handmade Kurdish wool rug, 5 foot by 102 inches, sold for £9. And you can see they're beautiful rugs. They're not full of holes. They're beautiful rugs. Canterbury sold for £1, which you found later up on the Marketplace, didn't you? The other Canterbury sold for £2. They also split the lot up. They weren't supposed to. My French Chateau mirror sold for 32. Bag of bones. They photographed that as a bag of bones, and literally, right, there was almost two full skeletons in there from Billy Bones, where you buy them in magazines, and each week you build up the skeleton using parts. Somebody paid thousands to buy those. I expected them to pull 100 plus, and they sold them for £8. Two early Grafton swivel chairs, they sold for 28. The mahogany chair was supposed to have been sold with the two Grafton, with the two Canterburys, and they sold that for £1. And then when they done the close-up photograph, no, you can't see it's blurry, but rather than photographing the carving, they photographed the lot number. My rocking horse, which somebody decided to slag off in the comments, which we will talk about in a bit, absolutely beautiful. They sold out for 120, and my lamp sold for £12 key, not 16.
Oh. Wow.
So that hopefully gives people a bit of context of the items that went in.
Well, pounds and like I don't understand the like splitting up. Yeah, I suppose you can understand it if you're going to be.
You split it up if you think you can get more money for the lots.
Yeah. But then you specifically stated not to do that, and now well, I guess they're going to charge you more because they made that decision, and then all the things they split up all sold for like £1 by the looks of it. So
well, they sold for £4 for 3 items, and I would imagine it's going to cost me whatever the minimum listing is, plus the photographing fees and the commission to sell each one individually. I'm actually going to be taking a loss on every single one of those items and actually paying them. I just well have gone down my local dump and chucked them in the bin.
Yeah, it's the thing. It's like £1 an auction. It's just crazy, isn't it?
Well, I didn't know an antique sale actually went to £1 because I've seen their antique sale, right? And the prices they start at are astronomical. I can't afford to buy out of their antique sale.
No, I used to. This is the thing, and I think I made the point to you that last year I was using them quite a lot as a buyer, and you have to be honest because obviously how you look at an auction house like this as a buyer compared to a seller is a bit of a flip because I'd spotted that they do make I only bought from the antique sale. I never even looked at their clearance one, to be honest. It just seemed like a lot of farming equipment. That tells you everything you need to know. I was an antique dealer. I never looked at Friday, so I thought it was all farming equipment and, as you say, just all the stuff that you saw. I didn't know there was anything that was an antique in there. But I look at the Saturday one, and I could tell they were making sort of basic mistakes. I thought with like how they were listing things. And we were talking earlier about the keywords. For example, I've had amazing Chinese stuff out there just because they were calling it Oriental, or they were calling it, Asian, or something like that. They didn't put the word Chinese in there. If you're unsure if it's Chinese or Japanese, you're better off just putting both of those words in that description, saying Chinese or Japanese, just so you make sure that you've covered both parts of the market. To be honest, I think an auction house should be able to tell. I think it's their job to know stuff like that. But if you don't, then you at least play the numbers game and try and make sure you get as much eyes on the item as possible. But yeah, I stopped buying there this year because I started to feel like gradually the prices were going up and up and up in that not just our auction house, in most auction houses, to be honest. So yeah, I stopped buying at auctions because I can't afford to go there anymore. So they clearly got a lot of buyers who go there, but it doesn't seem like they're maximizing what they could be getting.
Yeah. No, the auction, the petrol stations had one bidder, so they actually sold them for £1. I would have rather have them back. Yeah, well, they didn't use Art Nouveau in the title of the fireplace. They didn't list the petrol pumps with any sort of gas, oil, or petrol-related things. Now, there was one thing you could say. You could say, well, it's my own fault. Why didn't I pull the stuff? Well, Kieran will vouch for this. I didn't actually get the pre-sale report until I chased it up hours before, less than 24 hours before the auction started. At that time, it was the day before the auction, and a lot of my images still hadn't been up. And I was emailing back and forth saying, well, why haven't you even got any images there? So you've got, 2 fiberglass covers, nothing mentioned about petrol, oil, gas, or anything along them lines, and half my images were missing. So I was chasing up the pre-sale report on the day before. I was chasing up the images to be added on the sale room the day before, and they said there was an issue with the sale room, wasn't it? I emailed them the first time. They put some of the images correct, and then they said they're all done. I emailed back, said, no, you still missed images. Can you fix it? So I didn't actually have much time before the start of the auction. I had literally hours before the start of the auction. And let me share. 2 seconds. I'm going to share this with you now. which is what Kieran found for me, which was the actual auction catalogs. Now, I didn't actually know these even existed until you found them and sent them to me. Because I got to be honest, you've been quite good helping. Let me pull these up. So here we have special October auction of vintage modern effects, tools and bric-a-brac, which was on the 17th of October, which is what they put every single one of those items you just looked at in, including the rocking horse and the Persian rugs. And then the day after, they had the special October auction of miscellaneous objects of the art, collectibles, porcelain, glass, antique, and country furniture. So can you understand why? Because I can't. Can you understand why the stuff went into a bric-a-brac sale instead of an antique sale?
Yeah, I don't know why they did it, actually. It's a strange thing to say. I'm not sure what... I don't know what possessed them in a lot of those cases. Maybe they like to keep it simple. I don't know. Try and put most things in one auction. But I think the most likely scenario is that they ran out of space, and because you were going up after their closing date, they just thought, well, he came up late, he can go in that sale. But they never said that to you, and they should have, shouldn't they? If that was their intention, they could have said, look, you're too late for this time. Do you want to bring him up 2 weeks' time, and we'll put you in the next one after that? But at no point did they ever tell you what they were actually going to do. So
on top of that, mate, right, I phoned them on the Friday before the auctions closed and said, did you have room for this stuff? And she said, yes. I attended on the Monday morning. They come out and inspected the stuff in the car park. They wouldn't let me take anything until they'd inspected it, and turned away 2 items saying they weren't good enough for their antique sale.
Yeah, what's about...
At no time did they say to me or even suggest the stuff was going in a bric-a-brac sale.
Yeah. They're happy to sell things for £1, and they're turning things away. It seems utterly nuts. Like antiques as well, turning away antiques and art. Very bizarre.
How was that? That covers a topic we're going to cover in a few moments, which is basically auctioneers not doing research and things like that. We're going to get onto that in a minute. But that's a perfect example of it. The box of bric-a-brac bought for £3 and the painting went to Bonhams for 4k.
Nice.
That's a perfect example. Since you've brought that one up, all right, we'll move off from Nigel Ward for a minute, right? Because I think we've outlined the failings. I think what we've learned from that one is, first of all, have in writing what sale your stuff's going to attend, especially if they do more than one sale, right? And why I say that is, if I show you my entry form, right? My entry form, bear with me a second, just quickly. Here's my entry form. For Nigel Ward, right? Entry form, antique furniture, effects and collectibles. Now, that does not say bric-a-brac sale, does it? That implies from that, that's going in the antique sale.
Yeah, I think they've... I bet they haven't even thought about that. I bet they haven't even made that connection. They just at some point changed the name of the auction and not thought about what their form says. So, again, it's actually useful feedback for them, and they didn't take it on board.
Yeah. It says exactly the same on my pre-entry form, that exact title, Antique Furniture, Effects and Collectibles. And do you know what? Nigel Ward himself said, but it's got the word effects in there.
Yeah.
And he actually thought that was some form of defence.
Exactly. Why are you trying to slip it? Just take it on the chin and say, yeah, good point. We can actually... That's an easy thing to change. They can say...
You would like to think they'd watched the video, right, that I done, and instead of threatening me with a lawsuit, you'd have thought they'd have liked to have gone, okay, we accept your bad review. We may have made some mistakes during this auction. It's understandable. We can't fix it because we agreed there ain't no fixing it. And just said to me, we'll look at changing things, look to improve. That's all you could have hoped for. An apology, and we'll look to improve.
Exactly.
Right.
They may even at least consider what... It sounds like they didn't even want to know is the point as well. They didn't even care to listen to what you had to say. So, yeah.
So what we got, make sure the item goes in on the right day and the right sale, right? And I don't just mean take their word for it, because That is clear evidence there. Even though everything was implying it was all going into the antiques sale, they put it in the general tat sale. Right, so I would never sell an auction house again without some form of writing. I'd probably email it to them and say, what sale are you putting it into? So a reply, an email is actually a legal form of electronic mail. It is still a legal letter. It's a contract. So if they say to you it's going in an antique sale it should go. If they say to you it's going in the general sale, then that's on you. Right, but that wasn't on me. I personally don't feel that was my mistake. The implications all the way through were that was going in an antique sale, not a general bric-a-brac sale. But since TKX there brought up about that painting that was in a general box of miscellaneous, we're going to talk about something else totally different. Right? How auctioneers, and I'm not going to say this auctioneer is arrogant, but in my opinion then, let's say everything within this video is our own opinions. Okay, so that way we covered legally, right? So in my opinion, the auctioneer in the next item, and we're not going to name him, has been extremely lazy. He's had a Chinese porcelain vase in, and to be quite frank, he hasn't known what it is. Didn't know what it was. So instead of doing research or contacting an expert, now personally, if someone had come to me with that, I would have emailed Peter Coombs, paid £10 for an expert's opinion, which you'd have had within a couple of days, right? And they could have said to the buyer, right, we're unsure what it is. We're going to show an expert. It's going to cost you an extra 10. Are you okay with that? They would have said yes. Instead, we have an 800, give or take, year-old Chinese masterpiece, imperial porcelain Ming ware, estimated £100 in auction. What's your comments on that one, man? There's the vase.
The thing that gets to me about a story like this, right, is that what comes out afterwards and the publicity of the auction house and how they act. And there's no humility. They're kind of celebrating the fact we estimated this would get £100 and it went for £100,000.
I'd be ashamed if my estimate was £100 and reached 100,000.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're not going to promote it, but I'd probably be very quiet about the estimate you put on it. They're trying to do that because they're trying to build up an idea of other people looking at this and thinking, oh, well, if I don't have to worry then if they give me an estimate of £100 because it could actually go for this amount because they want to get as much as possible.
There's an image of the base. I think you'll agree with me, right? That is not a modern base. That is either an out-and-out fake or it is 100% real, right? It's not an image of a modern foot, right? Now, the point that I'm making is this, right? That vase was listed as auction estimate £100. That auctioneer could have sold it for £100, right? The auctioneer's response is, we were unsure, so we had to err on the side of caution. That side of caution could have cost that buyer £100,000, or that seller rather, £100,000. Then, if they're unsure and on the side of caution, right? Why would we even put the word style in it? You wouldn't have said Ming style vase. You would have just gone Chinese porcelain vase with Ming mark. A June D mark, I believe, was on there, right? Or you'd have gone, right, but we're actually unsure. Let's contact an expert, or because he obviously didn't want to lose the sale, or put her into a better sale room. Now, you've got to ask yourself, they achieved £100,000 with a title that said Ming style, right? Erring on the side of caution. What could that have achieved in the right auction with the right title? You've got to ask yourself that. That is another question.
Yeah, Ming style suggests not all the time. It's almost like you're erring on this is probably not right.
So don't tell me they haven't lost buyers who weren't confident to bid on it.
Yeah, because I don't think I think there's another one of those where there wasn't. It's only £100 auction estimate, so I doubt they put many pictures up or anything. Maybe they had a lot of interest.
There's only two on the article there.
Exactly. Yeah, Style said to me though, because this auction house as well is known for being one of the highly regarded ones. This isn't one of the, we're not mentioning the name, it's not hard to find it. You probably heard about it, but he's not known as being he's known as being probably just below the likes of Bonhams and Sotheby's and that, isn't he? So highly respected.
He's a respected TV expert.
Yeah. Maybe he didn't see it. Maybe, I think he's got 3 auction houses. Maybe it was someone else. But the point is that if you're that big of an auction house and you're putting your name to things, I mean, come on, you should be able to identify these things properly, or have like ways of, as we said, Peter Coons, or have access to experts. So you just pay to identify things properly. I think it's the other thing is as well. I bet he doesn't like doing that, because how many fakes do they sell through these auction houses? Where they get more money than they should do for them as well. So if they have an expert at hand, they always got to ask. An expert will say to them, "That's a fake." Well, what are they going to do then? Are they going to leave it in the auction, or are they going to keep it quiet, or do they have to say, "Well,
I would assume if they knew something was fake, they'd pull it. But
That's
the point about this wasn't that.
I bet they don't want to do that. Truly,
maybe they don't. But the upshot is, right? He has basically said, we have got a Chinese porcelain vase. It has got a Ming mark. So we'll call him Ming style. I don't believe for 1 second he knew that vase was real, in my opinion. Purely because if he thought there was even a possibility of that being real, look at the difference from what he would have sold it at £100 to what it achieved at 100,000. Why would you not investigate it? If you believe there's even a remote possibility of something is real, why would you have not have investigated it? Right? He believed that was either fake or modern reproduction. You would not have put £100 on it otherwise. No. And if you did, in my opinion, this is, of course, if you did believe that it was a chance it was real, why would you not have done that research, sent images off to experts, paid a tenner for an expert appraisal? Because that's all it is a tenner with Peter Coombs, right? And there's other experts. He could have emailed London auction sale room. Yeah. Right? In my opinion, they didn't realise what they had, put it in for £100, and then were shocked that it sold for 100,000, and then celebrating the fact that they achieved 100,000. But what could it have achieved? I got a funny feeling we'll see that vase up for sale in a couple of years in China or something like that for £1 million. It's a one-off. It's 800-year-old. It was imperial ware as well. Mark and period.
It might already be sold to, Chinese billionaire or something like that. And I'm sure they made a tiny profit off it, as well. So that's catastrophic, isn't it? £100 to £100,000. I just find that utterly. I'm sure
I don't think that's anything worth celebrating.
No, I really don't. The person who's got that money, although bear in mind, whatever their auction fees are, I'm sure they're happy enough. However, I don't know. Part of me would always be thinking, well, what should I have gone for then? But
in the right title, the right description, the right sale room, the right publicity, that could have really, potentially made anything. It could have made £1 million for all we know. We don't know. But that ain't the only case. Now, T-Cake's already shared a painting out of a £3 miscellaneous box selling for 4,000 at Bonhams. Do you want to share the story of your Japanese bowl?
Yeah, so that's a local auction house as well.
Share this. I'll be straight back now, right?
Yeah, anyways. So if you go to my channel, the full story's there. So it's about a Japanese porcelain bowl that showed up in a auction house near me. It was just a white plain bowl with Japanese characters underneath. And I suppose what made it interesting is most people who go to auctions, I'm sure everyone who's watching who uses auctions, these days you go through the catalogue and anything you think is interesting, you'll do a Google image reverse on probably first. And that's to start your research. You see if anything similar is out there, you can quickly then try and identify sold results. So it's actually a lot easier than it would have been in the past to buy well, I say buy well at auctions, but to buy at an auction and kind of know what the value you're likely to get is. The difference with this ball was if you did that Google image reverse, nothing came up. It was totally unique. So I went down and had a look at it. It's incredible quality when you have it in your hands, like the finest porcelain you'll ever touch. It's an amazing translucent effect. So I thought I'd take a chance on it. And I was prepared to spend probably up to about 100 quid as a punt. However, when the auction came, it was amongst, it was next to other Chinese works of art and Japanese works of art. But it was estimated was 40 to 60 pounds, and eventually, it came down, and I bought it for 20 pound, and that was the last bid. Basically, I was the only person to bid on it. They said we're not taking any more. I bid 20 pound, and then I got it. I got it home, did more research, got the mark on the base translated, and it turns out to be an exceptionally scarce piece by a Japanese artist known as Higuchi, who made this type of porcelain for a very short amount of time. And the only other examples which are well known about are in museums in Tokyo and his hometown in Japan. So it's a museum quality piece. I don't know what the true value is because it's so rare. It hasn't shown up in an auction before on record. And it's certainly never gone into a piece by him has never gone into auction with his name attached to it. So it's I had it authenticated by the aforementioned Peter Coombs, who was blown away by it as well. And now that just sits with me. So I guess that shows you the possibilities that there at auction, which still exist, because that happened only a few months ago. But I guess the question there is, well, what could the auctioneer have done, I suppose? What should that have got? It should have gone for £20, shouldn't it?
Well, I'd like to say, right, your Japanese bowl wasn't as obvious as the Chinese vase we just mentioned, right? Because you had to do quite a lot of research in your Japanese bowl and include Peter Coombs was an expert.
Yeah.
But the auction house you used has been in the business for decades, again. The auction house I used and sold through has been in the business for decades. The auction house that sold that Ming vase was a TV superstar celebrity who's supposed to be an expert, knows what they're doing. I feel that, and this is my best advice I can give to absolutely anybody, don't trust any auctioneer with finding out what your item is. Do not put it into auction until you know what it is. If you've got to pay for a valuation, if you have got something there that you think is good, and you go to an auction house and they say, oh, we'll put 40 to 60 on it, the market will find its value, don't believe them, because it does not find its value. People use the auctioneer's advice as guides. If an auction house says something is style, 99% of people are going to assume it's reproduction.
Yeah. And the
you
thing
need
is,
to do your own research.
Yeah. But auction house, there's the stuff. It's what people like you got to remember with auction house as well. They sit in this very weird position where the items don't belong to them. So they don't have the same attachment to them as you ever would. It's a conveyor belt. They see so many items that it just goes through and through. And they clearly, a lot of them just play a numbers game, don't they? And they just kind of assume the market will find it. So, like Dan Ming Vase, he probably was a bit like, oh, just put it in for £100. If it's real, you'll fetch whatever it fetches. But that's not his problem, is it? Because if it fetches £100 or £100,000, yeah, of course, he gets a lot more money for the £100,000, but you'll live to fight another day. Whereas that person, you'll get other items that come through at some other point. That person who's just lost their vase for a fraction of what it's worth, they don't have another one, and they'll never see another one again. So
it won't be another one in the world.
No, that's the thing. These auction houses, they have it. I do think people put a bit too much trust in them, and don't maybe understand what their business model is, which is a conveyor belt, and they just hope for the best with things, and it does lead them.
You hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head the other day when we were talking, right? Me and Kieran have been talking about the Nigel Ward situation for a week because it has just baffled us. Right, and he hit the nail on the head. They don't share the same passion as us anymore. They handle so much, as you just said, it's a conveyor belt. The stuff comes in, goes through, and it's out. And if something gets missed, it's no loss to them. It's a loss to the owner of that item. As you've rightly said, those items I put in could have been family heirlooms. And did they tell me the stuff was going in a general tic-tac-tat sale? No. General bric-brac sale? No, they didn't. They implied to me it was all going in the antique sale. You need to do your own research. If you don't know what your item is, right, ask an auctioneer. But don't take them at their word, because if an auctioneer says to you, oh, well, it's Chinese porcelain, but it's probably a copy, or we'll put her in the style and the market will decide, find an expert who can tell you what it is. Go to a local museum and ask for advice. Because I guarantee you, had they taken that vase to a museum, they would have said that is a genuine Ming vase, Junji period Ming vase. If they'd sent that to Peter Coombs, he'd have been practically jumping through the computer to handle it. He'd have loved to have seen it. You know what I mean, don't you? Yeah, I just think you can't trust these auctioneers to do the research.
No, certainly not. I mean, it's I don't want to sit here and have a pop of them all, because I a lot of them are good businesses, and they, I've got a problem with them. In fact, obviously we use them, but yeah, I think in this case, somebody's just gone in with something which is clearly very bad. Obviously, you don't know the background. Right? I don't know where that's come from. Although you read into it a bit more than me, that vase had provenance, didn't it? Going back to like 1850s.
They had provenance going all the way back to 1875 from people who'd owned it. Important people had owned it as well. Yeah, there's a full history of the provenance. So they even knew all the provenance going back 150 years. So if they're going to believe that provenance, because in the article it stated, oh, they had a magnificent provenance. Well, if you had magnificent provenance, then surely thou should have suggested to you that you need to do a bit more research.
That's even crazier, isn't it? What else do you want? I know it could have been a remake. Surely you put in the list.
Guangzhou. Is it Guangzhou, if I'm pronouncing that right? It could have been a revival piece from the Guangzhou period, 1875 through to 1908, right? It could have. However, because they had provenance all the way back to 1875, it could have been from that period, right? But how many auctions have you seen where they would have just listed it as a Chinese porcelain vase bearing the Junji mark of such and such, 1400 and something to so and such, right? With provenance, this is the provenance. That would have hit every red flag target out there for every Chinese buyer out there.
It's where the estimate becomes a problem for them as well, isn't it? Because if they do that and they're still unsure, they have to put an estimate on it. So it's the difference between putting it as £100.
And that just goes to research. Kieran, if people contact us for evaluation, we don't just go, oh yeah, it's 40, 60 quid. We go out there, we actually do the research. The reason we charge £10 for evaluation on our websites is because if we ain't 100% on what it is, we'll go out there and we'll spend hours researching it.
Yeah.
A, because we're learning, and B, because we're trying to provide a service.
Yeah.
It's about standard of service. Norfolk reseller there, right? I attend several auctions in Norfolk each month, never got anything for £1. It's always good competition from buyers. And that's exactly why I put the stuff in no reserve, because I believed other antique dealers would be more than enough for the stuff to find the level it was at.
Yeah, it was your decision to put in our auction was a logical one, wasn't it, as well? Because we know that if that was in the Saturday sale, then there'd be we'd be telling this story. You'd probably be.
Yeah.
The thing is, you wouldn't even know about the quality of service that can happen because it would have just gone in that auction. You would have got good results because they are well attended by dealers. That Saturday auction.
I can't afford to be out there.
No, exactly. They would just got. It's if anything, I think I know I've just given an example of the bowl I found, but I think most of the things going through auction these days are going for their retail value or sometimes even above it. I did a video recently where I covered this and went through 10 items where before the auction I researched what their retail value would be and what they sold for. And I think it was 7 to 8 of the items went for retail value or around the retail value, didn't leave hardly any profit if they did. But then 2 other items did actually go for quite good profits. So I don't know, it's getting tighter, I would say, the auction. I'd say it's getting harder and harder to go out of auctions rather than easier.
I've stated on my channel, right, for years that I do not buy from auctions. I've always said, right, the prices they achieve in auctions is a race to who's willing to take the least profit, because you've got the auctioneers already identifying it for everybody. So we've even got people who want to do it as a side hustle and earn a bit of money. They use the auctioneer's description and estimates to buy something, make a profit on it on marketplace or wherever. I've never been able to make proper profits off what I buy at auction. Right? Forget the mistakes like your bowl or that Ming vase, things like that, right? If I go to an auction and I single out, let's say, give you a perfect example. A few years ago, there was an auction house up in Leominster or Leominster, up that way, Ludlow way. And they had 2 Irish cork decanters, right? These are turn of the 18th century, 19th century Irish decanters. They're the top of the decanter market, right? £400, £500, £600 a decanter, no problem at all. They had an estimate on them of about £100 for the pair. I waited up all night because I couldn't sleep. I was too worked up. I drove hour and a half up to the auction to bid on them. They pulled £2,500. I cannot afford to buy out of auctions. When stuff is catalogued right, listed right, described right, and publicised right, it pulls his money.
That's interestingly what I've been finding is you start getting, if you get into auctions too much, you start looking at the catalogue and think you've spotted something. And the thing is, you have to be prepared that there's a good chance it's not just you. Like what happened with that bowl, I was waiting for it and I assumed I'd get outbid very quickly. And I just got very lucky on that occasion. But I'd say 99% of the time, whenever you think you've spotted something, a load of other people have, and they will achieve most of this money. So if you're going to, the thing about auctions, they take so much of your time. You have to do the research. You don't have to sit through it. It's hard to concentrate on doing anything else because you're thinking, well, if you're lot 500, that's probably an extreme. But say you're lot 250, and the auction starts at 1. You've got to keep an eye on that auction, even if you let it run without watching it, because you don't want to miss your time as well. So you have to invest. It's not just about investing money in it. You have to really invest your time. You have to be super disciplined now as well, because it's so easy to get taken away and think, well, you almost imagine owning the item, don't you, before you bought it, and then that's where it starts to get dangerous, because then you start, got one more.
That's why I don't sleep the night before. I get too excited. People don't realize, for me, the passion of this job is the passion of the items. It's not the money for me, it's the items. When I pick up an 18th century Chinese porcelain tureen or an 18th century drinking glass or something like that, I've saved it. And the thrill of pulling that out of a junk box on the floor, and you've done it yourself, you pulled that beautiful Qinglong jug out of that bowl, out of that box of miscellaneous in Madley for a £5 that was heading for the dump. 18th century Chinese porcelain. What was the thrill of that like? Do you know what I mean? It's the passion of the items.
Yeah.
And these auctioneers don't share that same passion. It's not their items. Now, another good point by here. Now, I already said the auctioneer did not catalogue my lots. I knew that for a fact because when it came to the actual sale day, he actually didn't know what those petrol pump covers were. He spent a few minutes fumbling around guessing what they were until he came up with it possibly from a petrol station petrol pump. Right? Whereas if the title had been right, he'd have known straight away off the title. So he admitted to me that he doesn't catalogue the lots. As he said, he has thousands of lots. He's got lots of workers. He's got a trusted staff that he trusts to do it. And that's probably more accurate. You don't know the knowledge of the people working under him, cataloguing the stuff up.
Exactly. And they're probably just doing quick Google reverse searches themselves as well. So I doubt they're trained.
Well, they've been in the business long enough. Even the people at the reception have seen enough stuff to know what's good and what's not good, or they should have.
Yeah.
This must be referring to the Ming vase style. Always says reproduction at the very best.
Yeah, that's great.
Totally see your point. Hi, Megan. They did very little. It was poor service. They never double checked anything with me. They'd never done anything with me. I had to chase them up for a pre-sale report, and it's almost a week later. Was it Friday today? The sale was Saturday, so 6 days later, I still haven't had a post-sale report. I still haven't had a post-sale report saying what my item sold for, how much commission I'm paying, how much my check's going to be. All I had was a phone call off Nigel Ward himself on the Monday where we had a big argument. And the argument ended with him saying to me that you seem to be getting worked up. I think we better leave it there because you're going to end up having a heart attack. That's what he said to me. How pompous is that? So, yeah, he shut the phone call down because he thought I was getting worked up and was going to have a heart attack.
Wow.
It's not as if anyone had made anything here. They take off both sides. Yeah, they do. They take off the buyer and they take off the sellers. You missed the start of it. Sorry about that. Value, was anything you want to set it up then?
Probably talking about the bowl.
Yeah, must be the bowl. Yeah, thanks for that one. To be honest with you, yeah, it could be literally anything. I don't know where it'll be, the value of that one. I don't think anyone will know until, was it Peter Coombs said to you, when the artist dies and there's a big media coverage of him?
He's long dead, but he said at some point there will be a revival, he will come back into the fray, so he'll be rediscovered in Japan. There'll be exhibition for his work and stuff like that, and then suddenly everyone will want a piece of his work, and there won't be many. So that'll be the time to hold out till.
I got a Chinese table, resin, wasn't labeled as much. Estimate 100 to 150. Yeah. I got it for a £5. Oh, that's shocking.
They estimated it for they estimated 100. They sold it for £5.
That's shocking.
Oh,
The thing is, right, another thing I did, right, on the day, I spoke to them and I said, I'm putting everything in no reserve. It's just auctioneer's discretion. An auctioneer's discretion would, in my opinion, wouldn't have sold those pumps for £1 for the 2 pump covers. Not even one. They sold the 2 for £1. You can't even buy a cup of tea at the boot sale for £1, Key.
Places like this is the other thing. Like, a lot of auction houses would have just said, "We're not selling it." They wouldn't want to be known for selling things for £1. You know,
No.
it's they say a clearance sale, but they just say, "I'd rather give it back to the owner." So,
Genuinely, I would have rather them give me all of it back.
Yeah.
If they'd actually messaged me and said, look, we haven't actually got room in the antique sale, or we don't think your stuff's good enough for the antique sale, it's going to go in the bric-a-brac sale. Do you want it back, or do you want to put it in the sale? I would have said, I'll come and collect it all.
Yeah.
And it's all right for people. Some people have commented saying, why didn't you pull the lots? We didn't actually know it was in with the type of stuff it was in until on the day, and then it was too late. Because as you will back up, I was actually concreting a step for my mother's front of my mother's house on the day of the sale. And I didn't have the pre-sale report until hours before the sale. So I couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
But it was, in my opinion, as well, laziness. Yeah, moving on. But we're just looking at basically things we can learn from her, innit? That's what this is about.
It's worth mentioning as well the other like thing that was spotted from that auction from the Facebook.
Yeah, if you want to. Hang on, I'll go on. You can just tell them.
Well, I think that's
it's
interesting.
on the article if you want to see it.
Now, this was just so happens to be the same auction that you just came across on Facebook, didn't you? So it's like nothing to do with anything, your feedback or whatsoever, but someone happened to put the same auction house in a paperweight group and showed some photos of some paperweights they bought and how they were stacked. Like, these are beautiful glass paperweights, very valuable ones. And they were just stacked. They all like touching in a tiny little, like, was it like an ice cream tub or something like that?
Right.
And just like,
let me break it down in simple terms. Perthshire paperweights, limited edition Perthshires, Caithness paperweights, Whitefriars paperweights. They paid £110 plus commission for the one lot because I was bidding on them myself. The other lot made up 2 or 3 separate lots of paperweights. One of them in there I know was £65. I don't know about the others. But what they had done, they had little boxes or tubs and they'd stacked the paperweights on top of each other, nothing in between them. Now, if anybody is a paperweight dealer or collector, you know that causes what's called microbruising, which is considered damage and seriously affects the value of the paperweights. I was on a paperweight group on Facebook, and it just so happened that this thread came up on my screen, and it was someone complaining about how they'd been given their paperweights at the same auction, and everybody's horrified on how these paperweights are being stacked and handed over to the buyer when he parted with hundreds of pounds to buy them. And an auction house of that length and that caliber should know that's not how you stack them and that's not how you give them to your buyer.
To sell them and then to treat them like that, you know, it's bad to treat them like that at any stage. But at that point, somebody's spent, you know, hundreds of pounds on it. It's just, you know, it just goes back to that passion, care about you got no passion about your items, have you? If you treat them like that, you don't care about them. You know, so
there was loads of comments as well. People saying, now this isn't the same auction house, but people commenting saying they've bought stuff from auction online. The auction house has shipped it to them, and then the stuff have got there damaged because it's poorly bad, and then the auction house says, sorry, there's no liability on the shipping. We don't cover the shipping. We'll pack if you'll ship it to you, but we don't cover it. If it gets broken, it gets broken.
I gotta say, like, with shipping, the cost of shipping with auction houses, well, it's not going to be every single one. There will be some exceptions, but I think on the most part, they are running, you know, a little racket with that. The charges they do on shipping is incredible, and I've only had it done a couple of times. And what blows my mind is how bad they are at shipping it then as well. So, you know, obviously they probably have to ship hundreds of items. It must be quite an operation. But they are charging a hefty. If you think about the Royal Mail charge of what it would have been, which is probably about a tenner, the chances are you're paying 40 quid or something like that for 10 of it is the shipping, the rest of it is what they claim it to be their what's it called, or work and service as well. But the things they do with shipping and as you say, they also take that approach. We'll ship it, but if it breaks, that's not on us. That's you blame the shipping company. Can you imagine that operating like that as a dealer? I don't even think you're allowed to. So I think I don't know. I think that sometimes a lot of people just accept far too much from auction houses, which they would never accept from a dealer or a standard business. So yeah, I don't do that anymore. I would never bid on an auction where things have to be shipped anymore. I just wouldn't. I only want to pick it up.
I bought a Nankaru plate at auction. Trying to think of the name of the auction house. I bought it a year or two ago. They specialize in Chinese porcelains as well. I can't think of the name of the auction house. And I got to be honest with you, right? I missed it during the auction. I sent him an email. I said, is this plate still available? He said, yeah, we'll ship it to you. All in, shipped, and the buying it. And they done it at a discounted price and all. And I got to be honest with you, they packed it as good as I would. Right? So it's not all auction houses.
No.
Right? It came in a box like this for a little plate and it was full of bubble wrap. They'd done an amazing job. Right? And I would have been more devastated at losing a Nankaru porcelain plate than I would have been the money. But they did an amazing job. So it's not all auction houses. But that is some of the comments we were having on. I don't know if anybody's seen the videos. Now, I put the Nigel Ward video out there public. I didn't put it on my membership side. I put it public on purpose because I thought people need to see how the items are treated in auction houses. And I didn't do it to slag off Nigel Ward. I done it as a warning for people to make sure they know what they're selling, make sure they know what items are worth, what they're selling, and what sales they're going into. Because that's valuable lessons I've learned myself. I trusted an auction house to do their best. I give them everything, no reserve, good items, no reserve, said, just do the best you can do, and I'm happy with whatever you get. And they did far from their best. I'll never trust an auction house to do that again. But that's why the video went out on the public instead of on the member side, because it was going to go on the member side, because it was going to be a full in-depth analysis of the auction house and what's gone wrong and things like that, and tips on how to avoid it. But I thought it was too strong a message and too important not to be public, even though I'm going to be sued for it.
No, let's see what comes to pass there.
Yeah,
it looks like there's a general. It's a weird one, the auction houses, because I think a lot of dealers will feel that way, but still need to use them, I suppose, is the point, because that's just how a lot of dealers will operate. Yeah, look, it's an odd one. I'm trying to think what I'm trying to think of is where they should place, really. Like how often should we be using them and stuff? And I think it's just it's difficult to say. I don't. On the whole, I think that you are right. There are some exceptions. There are some that a lot more, but on the whole, they just. I don't know. They do.
So let me highlight another problem then with auctions. All right, you leave a book bid or you bid online. Now, I got in trouble for this one. Well, I didn't get in trouble, but I got banned from an auction house, right? I'm banned from a flea market because I highlighted the flow again. I bought £16 a job lot that had been put into the wrong sale again. It'd been put into a general household sale rather than the antique sale, local to us. And I bought it for £16. Now, I had photographed the lot on the day because I was looking at it and thinking, damn, that's nice, that's nice. And I done photos to research it. Not for anything else, just to research. And when I got home, there was multiple Swedish paperweights, big ones, really nice, multiple paperweights. There was 18th century glass in there. There was TG green in there. It was a really good bundle. And I was willing to pay £300-400 for it. So I'm bidding. I won it for £16. I went to collect it 3-4 days later, and I turned around to the auctioneer and I said, there's actually 3 really nice, big Swedish paperweights missing. I said, would you please go on the CCTV camera and have a look who stole them and ban them? I said, I'm not worried they don't come back. I only paid £16 for the lot. I said, can you find out who done it and ban them? Because I can't stand thieves. I wouldn't steal off someone else's lot, and I don't expect to be stolen off. Right? In fact, there was a lot put on my sheet from Nigel Ward's this week that didn't belong to me, and I told him straight away, that don't belong to me. I don't want the money for it. Find out who it actually owns, who owns it. Anyway, I highlighted this. I'd done a full video vlog because back then I was vlogging everything. I was just doing video logs of everything that happened to me. And I wasn't slagging the auctioneer down at all. I just said about what had happened. Anyway, I'd done a follow-up the following week. And in the follow-up, I outlined I'd actually made £1,000 off what was left in that job lot. I'd sold pieces of TG Green to the TG Green Museum. I'd sold the paperweights that were left. I had 18th century glass on my site that was up for £200-300. I'd made, give or take, around £1,000 off that £16 after they'd stole the paperweights. And in that video, I happened to say, I don't know what's happened yet because I haven't heard from the auctioneer to know if he found anyone or not. Somebody went back to the auctioneer, reported to the auctioneer that he's slagging you off, saying you haven't even looked at the CCTV camera. In fact, what I said was in the video, I don't know what's happened yet. I don't know if they've had time to look or anything yet because I haven't heard of them. And someone went back and said to the auctioneer, I'm slagging them off, saying they haven't even bothered to check the CCTV. And I got banned from the auction house and from the flea market that's associated with the auction house. But in all honesty, in that video, I was telling people how amazing a bargain it was that I bought £1,000 worth of goods for 16 quid. Get down there and see what you can buy. But I think, as opposed to the excuse on why they banned me, I think it was more that I highlighted how incompetent they were putting it all in the general sale, because it's very similar to what I've just had.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think they. It's one of those, isn't it? Because if you're an auction house, you can go either way. That it can either make you get more bidders because they all think they're going to get a bargain, but then sellers will be thinking, well, that's not a good place to take my items to. So, and I think they're probably more worried about that, to be honest, than the bidders.
I think so. Didn't one of our local auction houses give someone a row the other day for bidding on his own items? There used to be, I don't think it's so much anymore, but I don't know because I don't go to auctions, where auctioneers used to bounce you off a wall, so to speak. If they had a reserve on an item, and let's say for argument's sake the reserve's 100 and you're the only bidder at 40, they'd bounce you off a wall, trying to get you up to the reserve. And if you don't get there, then they just say, sorry, no sale. That used to happen. I don't know if it does anymore. But yeah, ghost bids.
Feels like it.
So, yeah, what do you think we could share to help people with buying and selling at auction? Any tips?
Well, selling, I think you covered it well. You have to, if you've got an item you think's good, you should research it fully, and I would suggest pay for evaluation, even as a second opinion, before taking it to the auction, because an auction valuation is not like an identification and valuation you'd get from a specialized service. They're looking at your item as that's something that we want to put in the auction. And as we saw, they're prepared to take the risk of putting it in for £100 to see what happens. And if it goes for £100, they won't think twice about it. So it is different. I think that is a big thing. If you're selling something which is really, is you think is worth a lot of money. I suppose the only other thing I'd probably say is, as you've probably learned now as well, is that auction houses do change over time. So the auction house you've dealt with in the past might not be the same auction house you're going to deal with today. They may have changed how they do things. They may have let their standards slip. They may have lost passion. Might be taken over by new people. All these sort of things. So it's probably best now, if you're going to put things in auction, you need to know how that auction operates and how they sell things. Are they prepared to let things go for £1? You kind of have to understand. It's probably worth making sure you've watched how that auction house operates a little bit before putting stuff in there. I think that's fair to say now, isn't it?
Well, I was going to actually add in that maybe attend a few sales before you even consider selling with them. See how they handle the stuff, see how they handle the lots. Now, if you actually attend a Nigel Ward antique sale on the Saturday, right, you'd be impressed. You'd be impressed at the money they achieve. You'd be impressed at the price the auctioneer starts at before he comes down and accepts a bid. And I've seen him there say, you ain't having that for that money. All right. So it's not like I could have attended the sale, the antique sale, and then anticipated them putting it in the general sale with the bric-a-brac.
But it's also worth saying, if you're thinking about like word of mouth and what people's reviews of an auction are, if you're thinking of selling, if who you're speaking to are happy buyers doesn't necessarily mean happy sellers, does it? There's usually a reason why an auction house might get a lot of buyers and do really well for the buying side of things. The sellers is because they're obviously getting good bargains and stuff like that. So yeah, you have to look at an auction differently compared to what your intention is with them. If you're there to buy, then you would look at it. You are looking for auction houses like Nigel Ward, to be honest, who might make more mistakes, who might let things go in a little bit. But then on the other side of that, I'd probably suggest, as you said, go and really attend that auction and make sure you pick up your items on the day. Don't let them handle it after you bought them, because from the example that we've seen on that paperweight group, you don't know what they're. The thing is, an auction house like that, they're moving stuff around all the time as well, even after they sold it. So I wouldn't like the idea of that me spending hundreds of pounds on something and then moving around the auction house. So that's another thought. What we got here?
No, for resale, wait for, I'm going to comment on this one. The auctioneer in the general sale, right? And what you say is 100% right. The auctioneer in the general sale, right, started everything at £30. But I don't think a hand went up until it reached £1 or someone else started bidding. So it went 30, 20, 10, 5, £1. And nobody bid in the room until it hit £1.
The auction house.
You don't get that in the antique sale.
The other one,
Sorry,
there's a funny thing on that. Most of the time, I totally agree with you. There's one, the one you got banned from, actually. I don't know if you ever noticed with him. He would start at, say, 50 quid. You get to 25. He's the only auctioneer I've ever seen who doesn't say this is like the lowest I'll go. You'll just go pass. So there's people thinking, oh, I was going to bid. They're waiting for it to hit the bottom point, but he doesn't tell them. He just passes it. So
yeah, so you got to know your auctioneer.
I don't know why you would do that, but it just seems like
you can buy out of auctions. You really can. Now, when I go to auction, I don't do auctions as a rule because you pay too much for the stuff. However, if I go to auction, I won't even buy an auction catalogue, because I think if I buy myself an auction catalogue, my view on the items is tainted. I already got the auctioneer's idea in his head, what the stuff is, what it's worth, and so forth. I would rather walk around assessing what I think I could sell something for, what I think I'm willing to buy it for, and what it is. And I definitely dig through miscellaneous boxes. The amount of 18th century drinking glasses I used to buy in miscellaneous boxes, Chinese porcelain. I've even pulled a piece of Nankara out of Cardiff auctions, right? I'm not going to name which one because there's 3 down there, but I've pulled a piece of Nankara out of the miscellaneous boxes for £1. Right, so it can happen. So you definitely got to get in if they sell shelves of miscellaneous or if they sell boxes of miscellaneous. In fact, that one I shared of the one where I got banned earlier, that was a job lot. It'd come from a house fire because everything was thick with soot. And rather than wash the stuff and put it on display tidy in the antique sale, the auctioneer just went, chuck it all in the general sale, dirty as it is. I washed it all and half the stuff ended up in museums. It was that good, Key. It was amazing stuff. It was beautiful. I had it for 16 quid because it was in the wrong sale. Had that been in the antique sale, it'd have gone for 500, 600, £700, even dirty. I wouldn't have had a sniff of it.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's kind of like a bit of a paradox we got going on here. We're kind of saying, I guess, overall, they're probably not especially if you're an antique dealer and you know what you're doing, you can like sell things yourself. They're never going to be the best place to sell for you, are they? Unless you are in a situation that you and me have found ourselves in recently, where we've got items that we don't want to put on our website, but we know have got a certain amount of value. The reason we don't want to put them on the website is you can't, quite simply, you can't ship them. As simple as that, really.
With shipping, storage, everything in it. Or maybe they just don't fit in with what you sell. For example, that big rocking horse was massive. It took up so much storage. And I want to add in, right? We've had the most weirdest thing in the world happening this week, right? Now, I shared the story of the auction house online, right? I really did. And as a rule, 99% of all comments have been positive. Would you agree with that one, Key?
Yeah.
99%? They've been supportive. Anyway, we had one comment come in that was very suspect. The comment came in and said, I'm not surprised the auctioneer put your rocking horse into the general sale and didn't say much about it, basically implying it was absolute rubbish, that he was held together with posi screwdrivers, and he went there to view it himself, and it was absolute tat. And we discovered that he'd created the account seconds or minutes before putting the comment on my video. And not only was it a brand new account, he'd stolen a profile picture from somebody named Walter O'Neill, which is exactly my name, but this Walter O'Neill was a Florida artist, a ceramic artist. So I went back to him and said, well, you're either a fake account or you're lying. I said, because first of all, if you are Walter O'Neill in Florida, how did you attend the auction? And then he puts up images of the rocking horse and says, well, these are my images. And I'll show you all the images now in just a second. And he kept going on and on and on. And in the end, I said to him, you're either associated with the auction house, or basically, I know who you are, and you're trying to hide who you are. And I'll share with you the photos, and you can judge it for yourself. Because in the end, I shut him up. I said, look, I'm not arguing with you no more. If your opinion is the rocking horse didn't deserve to be in the antique sale, that's absolutely fine. But you didn't need to steal profile images and make fake accounts up to share your opinion. You should have shared your opinion under your own name. But take a look. I'm going to share the rocking horse with you, right? These are the images he said, right? He said, because it's got a screw there, and that there, he said it was crap, falling apart. Now that screw there is part of the construction, which was basically just an extra support so the legs don't get broken. And this screw there was actually part of the brackets for the swing brackets. This is the rocking horse. Beautifully hand-carved rocking horse. All the hair was original horsehair. The saddle had been stitched to the wood. It had been stitched into the wood. And he tried saying that that was a load of tat and belonged in. It was so strange because he'd faked this account just to run this down and defend the auction house.
It was just odd. It was just like it was an attempt to discredit the argument, which was like unnecessary. If that was your opinion, you could have just said that. You didn't have to set up an account in their own name necessarily. They could have just set up some sort of account which is just generic. But I don't get the looking for an image of someone called Walter O'Neill making that your profile picture. That's really weird, isn't it? Like, how did you come across that picture of all pictures? Yeah, it just seems. And even if if you just look at the point that was being made, I don't get what the point is. Because even if you believe that, I don't know what you're trying to say. Was he trying to say that was a modern or what?
He believed that the rocking horse wasn't good enough quality to go in the antique sale. Now, everybody's obviously looking at the horse there. I don't know what you all think of it, right? I paid £150 for this horse from a charity shop, and I was jumping up and down thinking I had a bargain. These horses sell for as much as £1,000. It's beautiful. It's hand-carved. Saddle's been stitched into the body. He's proper horse here. He's on about, see that swing bracket, but they on the base screw on the leg, which just strengthens the legs. And he was saying they don't belong in an antique auction.
And I suppose why maybe he's like trying to be a purist and say, well, it's not over 100 years old. But you go through their antique auction, and over half of it will not be over 100 years old. Well,
it says antique and collectibles, mind.
Oh, there we are then.
But so it did not belong in a bric-a-brac sale.
No.
But yeah, we fake account, and he said it's not a fake account. It's all there on my Antiques Arena blog. If you go across to the blog, right, you can read every comment as well, because I do everything full transparency, good, bad, ugly, everything, right? I share everything. In fact, I talk before I think, and I say everything as it is, right? So I turned around to him. I said, look, I believe you've got a fake account with a fake stolen profile picture, and I said you're defending the auction house, so you're either associated with them or you're hiding your identity from me. So I obviously know you off the boot sales, basically. That's the conclusion we came to, and I've put all the comments, and I even added his photos into the blog. And his comments into the blog, because the blog is supposed to be a balanced, honest, fair opinion of this is what happened to me at auction. You make your own decision.
Yeah, it was weird. I didn't get that. But then, as I said to you earlier, there's going to be a lot of people who love Nigel Ward because they're buyers there, and they probably feel they do really well, especially if they attend that general auction sale and get things for £1. Because the thing is, even if the stuff, as we said before, even if stuff you were selling was, I don't think either of us are trying to claim otherwise, that all that stuff is hugely valuable and really fashionable.
It was worth more than the pound, though, wasn't it?
It's worth more than a pound. And if you bought it for a pound, that's a good, and you have an antique stall somewhere, you've done fine. You've had a great day. In fact, if you're an antique dealer near that auction house and you can sell furniture items and stuff like that, then it would make sense to go along and get your stuff for a pound. Well, that's all.
My problem was never the price. My problem was they didn't put it in the antique sale. If they put it in the antique sale and I lost all the money, at the very least, I could have used that footage for the video you and I had planned, which was the antiques trends, moving, selling items, what's saleable now, what's out of fashion now, type of thing. I lost that opportunity. I can't make that video now. That video is gone. I don't have those items to put back in auction, no reserve, to take the chance and say, what are they going to sell for? And then we can compare honest sale results to the market trends of, is it worth buying this stuff anymore if we see it? Now, following this auction, and I want to show you just how affected it was by it, there was a car boot sale down the road from us, and they had a nice mid-century coffee table set. So they had the big coffee table inlaid with all the tiles. It looked Danish. And they had the two smaller tables, £5. And we both left it there because of the way Nigel Ward acted. And we thought, well, you can't put the stuff in the auctions. You've got to pay the £5 for it, transport it, store it, put it in the auction, and hope they even put it in the antique sale, not in the general sale, and sell it for £1. What was the point?
Yeah, you have to, like...
So wherever you're selling, make sure you set a reserve. I only done no reserve because I wanted to do the experiment. That was the only reason I done no reserve, and I suppose because I trusted the auction house, which I did trust the auction house by mistake.
It's funny because I've literally today just done a very similar thing, which is put a load of similar items in a different auction house. Now the difference with this auction house, I won't name them because I don't know how it's going to play out or whatever, but local. I kind of know what to expect, which is they will sell things as low as £4. I know that for a fact, so I know that before putting things in. I give them a low
times what I had.
Yeah, so we are. So, but what I do know, I haven't gone to them regularly, is that I know for sure, based on how they operate, that catalogue will be up a week in advance. If not a week in advance, I think the last point they put items in is the Friday, and then the auction is Monday and Tuesday. So that's a whole weekend where their catalogue will be up, and I'm happy with that. I kind of know that going in, because I kind of want to do a similar thing to what you were hoping to do, which is just let things go in, start at low prices, and fetch whatever they fetch. I'm not invested so much in these items that I'm that worried about what they fetch, but I guess we'll see what happens there. But that's kind of what you were hoping for, wasn't it? You just wanted things to be given a chance.
Yeah, I wanted an honest market trend, right? I wanted to know honestly what the stuff would sell for now, right? Because the stuff I put in is traditionally old style antiques, fireplaces, rugs, rocking horses. It's traditional old antiques. And I wanted to know if there was a market for them anymore, or if all we were serving was other eBay dealers and things like that, or people only wanted smalls. People are in smaller houses now. People are going minimalistic now. So we wanted to know, an honest opinion, was the stuff still even saleable? Because I couldn't sell her in Malvern, and I took it straight to the auction house because I wanted to see if I could sell her in the auction house. Now, bear in mind, it didn't sell in Malvern, but I was asking £100 a rug. I was asking £300 for the horse. I was asking £100 each on the fireplaces, give or take, something like that. I was asking proper money in Malvern. I weren't giving it away. Right, so you have to take that into consideration as well. If I put £6 or £10 on them rugs and £6 on the scales and £120 on the horse, I'd have sold it all without commission. So make sure you use reserves. Make sure you research your auction house. Speak to the auction as well. And if you're considering buying lots of drinking glasses, Georgian drinking glasses, paperweights, things like that, make sure that they're going to be in the condition that when received that you've bid on them. That they don't just turn around and say to you, "Oh, they might got damaged during viewing." That's not our problem. This is the lot you bid on. That's it. Make sure if you're bidding on it, take a photograph of the lot, and you make sure to the auctioneer up front, these are the items I'm bidding on. This is what I'm after. Mind, it's got to be there, or I'm not buying the lot. Because we had a comment on the video as well, someone saying an item was missing, and the auctioneer said, "Tough, that's the lot you bought." So yeah, and you've got to be careful with the descriptions, obviously. But I think the biggest thing here, right, isn't even from our failure. The biggest thing here is from the failure of that Ming vase and your Japanese bowl and that painting that was shared earlier in the thread. If you don't know what you're selling, don't trust an auctioneer to tell you. A lot of auctioneers do free valuations, but there's a difference between a valuation of, yeah, we can sell that for £40 to £60 to, that's a Ming vase worth £500,000. That's the upshot of it.
Yeah.
Do your research, even if you mean go to a museum or pay for an expert before you go to the auction house.
Not big time. Yeah. You know, that story is still mind-boggling to me. I'd love to. There must be more to it because, you know, with the
I've only read the article. It's on the newspaper.
Yeah, crazy. But
and I'm not going to share the auction name because, in all honesty, right, they achieved a cracking price. They're a top-end auction. He's a top-end expert. I just think if they were unsure, they should have, in my opinion, they should have sought extra help.
Well, they celebrated.
I made sure.
How many have slipped through though that you never know about?
You bowl slipped through it. We know about.
Yeah.
Do you know what else slipped through the net? I bought a Chinese I Ching pottery teapot this year in a car boot sale. Now, they told me a story of how it's come out of their daughter's house clearance. But how do I know that's not another one that come through auction? Because a lot of what they sold was really weird, because you had Oriental and you had slippers. You had so much. You had the Japanese slippers, you know, the wood slippers, like clogs, the Japanese ones. They had so many different things on the table. It's not what I would have expected a lady to have collected. It looked like it was an auction job lot. And had it been an auction job lot, that means that my teapot also slipped through an auction. I don't know. I'm only speculating there, mind. I'm just guessing, but it did. We see a lot of stalls, and we see what comes out of people's general households. So when you get a stall that looks like it's come from an auction, they stand out to us, don't they? You know, a bit like that stall in Catholic at the beginning of the year where they had the Chinese vase and you had the gold cameos.
Yeah.
A bit like that stall. You know what's a good-looking stall and what's not. So things are slipping through.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, you know about. There must be loads to get through that people don't know about, and someone mentioned about that.
And that's why everyone goes to auction, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm trying to think, like, because as we're saying we don't really bother with them anymore. But
I don't.
It does make you think. Like, I've just had another one when I did the auction experiment a couple of weeks ago. I bought one lot from there, which I didn't include in there, and that was £20 as well. They're like old Quran scripts.
Yeah, the pages of the Quran.
Yeah,
and they're beautiful. Yeah,
they're going to be. You know, I'll do a video when I get all the information on them, but they're going to be extremely valuable as well. That's the auction win.
Yeah.
But the story of what happened there was right up to the day of the auction, all the listing had, it just said free religious texts or free religious pictures or something like that, and that was it. And again, this is, I suppose, if we're talking about tips, I'll put on your membership size. Maybe not something you'd want to put out to everyone publicly, this type of stuff. But if I'm looking at an auction, that's what I'm looking for, is something that's been not described properly. So those keyword alerts are not being triggered for people who are looking for specific things.
Yeah, but that hurts the sellers, doesn't it? It's great for the buyers, but hurts the sellers. But yeah, go on.
Oh, yeah, it does. But, you know, you got to look after yourself as well. So if you're a buyer, that's what you'll be looking for. And so that was one of those lots. I was like, I don't care, but this is what I do now. So I used to just cast a really large net, and I'd just have like loads of things I'd bid on, and then whatever I got. You could end up spending thousands doing it that way. These days, I am very more meticulous and just go for certain things and just sort of focus on them. And if I get them, great. If I don't, then I don't worry about it. But that was the one lot I did. I thought they misdescribed. When I looked at the auction that day, the description had completely changed. and overnight the auctioneer had done loads of research and had listed them all up correctly and said what they were and dated them and everything. And then but it was too late. Is the point I was going to make. It's like I was getting quite worried during the auction itself. He spent age. He wouldn't put a hammer down because he'd obviously learned by this point what they were. But he was like, he just would not put that hammer down. He spent ages waiting for bids to come in. A couple of people just chucked in speculative ones because he just kept talking about how great they were. But eventually, no one wanted to take a risk beyond £20 again. I've ended up with them. So that's the only thing I can say really is you have to kind of look for. I'll read that comment in a second, but yeah, you have to look for miscatalogued, and yeah, they are very rare. You have to be very patient and don't assume you're the only person who got them. You just have to be lucky on the day.
Exactly. And the thing is also, Robert, right? You have to make sure that your stuff goes in the right sale, because if the antique dealers ain't there to look at that sale, then it don't matter what it's described as. Now, you've said you've never looked at the Friday sale, the farmers market sale,
Yep.
But now I'm sure you will after the way they sold my stuff.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm not inclined to bid from there myself because
the way you saw the way they were treated. Yeah,
that's really worrying, isn't it? It's like you think I wouldn't go up on their view because they do Saturday, so you'd be waiting until at least a Monday before you can pick your items up, and then what's going on with those items in the meantime? So, well, we had a view of that. So that would...
If anybody is interested in what's actually gone on, 100% with Nigel Ward's, right? It's a full article on my website. Check out the article and check out the video I did on it. And it outlines a lot of problems, and hopefully it'll give you an idea. Before we go, I don't know if you want to share any last tips, Kira. I want to say thank you to a new member. Thank you very much for joining. I appreciate it very much. And this video, when we finish talking, is going to be transferred to the membership side. We put it live because we wanted people, anybody who watches them live, they get to watch them live and comment and things. But anything educational now, tips, secrets, things like that, they all go on the membership side. But Kieran is also on YouTube himself, Patreon himself, and Rumble himself. And Kieran shares a lot of valuable stuff as well. Like that Japanese porcelain bowl. You have a really good video on Cloisonne. So check out Kieran as well. Make sure you do that. But I don't know if there's anything you want to add in now before we call it a day.
I just the only other thing I'd say, I did a video last year, I think it was, or earlier this year, about buying at auction, and I did a few tips. I was buying a lot more at the time at auction. I did quite a few little tips then, and I'm struggling to think of them now. But the video is on my YouTube, and I just got added to Patreon. My Patreon is free of charge, so if you are on there, if you want to join and just watch the video on there, you can do. So yeah, I just uploaded it to there if you want to go and check that out. But I think I went through in a bit more detail kind of my process around auctions and how I bid on them and that type of stuff. So if anyone's interested, please head over.
Okay. Unless anybody got anything they want to chuck in the comments now, I will wait a little bit. If you get any comments you want to put in for us to address, I will wait and see if you get any comments. But other than that, I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover in today's video, mate. I don't know about you. Is there anything you want to add in?
No, I was just reading the auctions then.
There you are, fella.
Yeah, that's my place.
Was it they called him something unusual and specific?
Yeah, that's what I go for.
Hey, do you know what? That's what you want. If you're going to buy anything in deal antiques now, right? The only way to make a success of it is to either be cheaper than everyone else or buy something they can't compare. So if you're buying weird and wonderful and unique and handmade items, they can't compare you to other people. Freaking art. There you go. Anyway, I think we'll call it there. Thank you.
Sounds good.
For everybody who watched live, thank you very, very much. And as I say, all my educational stuff's on the membership side now, and I'm on YouTube, Patreon, and Rumble as well. If you watch my YouTube channel and Kieran's YouTube channel, we've been shadow banned. We do not get promoted, either of us. So if you do not hit the bell for notifications, you won't know when we put a video out, because they literally, the impressions we get is like 2, 3, 4, 5,000 per video, where other people get hundreds of thousands per video. So if you want to make sure you don't miss our videos, make sure you hit that bell for notifications, or you won't see us. If we put videos out weekly, if you don't come back and if you don't see us, then it's because we're not being pushed, but the videos will be there if you want to come and see them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all soon, Kieran. Thank you very much, fella. I appreciate the chat.
Thanks for inviting me.